Seth Magaziner and Kristi Noem didn't just clash in a hearing. They collided in a moment so explosive that even seasoned lawmakers stopped and stared. It began with a single question, the kind that lands like a thunderbolt. Did you deport a 4-year-old American child with stage 4 cancer without due process? And can you prove the mother ever consented? What followed wasn't a hearing. It was a dismantling. A moment where one congressman brought documents, dates, and direct contradictions, and the secretary responsible for America's homeland security brought nothing but pauses, deflections, and empty assurances.
You're back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Magaziner for 5 minutes.
Madam Secretary, on April 24th, a woman in Louisiana was deported along with her 7-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son, both of whom were U.S. citizens. The 4-year-old son had stage 4 cancer. Now, you just stated under oath that the mother consented to having her U.S. citizen children removed. But I have spoken with the attorney for that U.S. citizen child with stage 4 cancer. She has also made numerous statements to the press in which she stated unequivocally that at no time did the mother consent to her U.S. citizen children being removed. What evidence do you have to support your claim that she did consent?
Congressman, we followed the same policies and procedures
What evidence do you have?
And we
What
have
evidence do you have?
We have
that
documentation
she? What documentation do you have that mother consented?
We'll get that to you, sir. I don't have it with me.
Please do. I understand it's hard to keep them all straight because you've deported
multiple
multiple U.S. citizen children, but I'm asking specifically about the 4-year-old with cancer who was deported on April 25th. For the record, that family was also not given access to legal counsel before they were deported, even though their lawyer was in the same building at the time. I'm holding in my hands here a document called ICE Directive 11064, Interests of Non-Citizen Parents and Legal Guardians of Minor Children. This is the policy for how ICE agents should handle situations like this. It states unequivocally that parents and legal guardians should have the ability to make alternative care arrangements for minor children prior to their arrest or detention, and that ICE must afford parents the opportunity to consult with legal counsel. So, did the ICE agents working on this case who deported this 4-year-old with cancer of their own volition fail to follow ICE policies, or were they directed to by your office or anyone else in DHS leadership?
Sir, this mother chose to keep her child with her.
You have not produced any evidence to say so, but I'm asking again, have you directed DHS officers to ignore this policy?
It's very different than the previous administration.
Right.
The previous administration
on March 15th, reclaiming my time, on March 15th, your department sent 3 airplanes to El Salvador. Those planes carried approximately 261 individuals who were imprisoned upon arrival. Did you personally review and approve the names of those 261 individuals before they were sent?
Sir, we have deported and sent home
did you review the names of those individuals?
And we have individuals that have the
why won't you answer the question?
Within the Department of
Are you
Homeland
aware
Security.
of whether those 261 individuals were given the opportunity to speak with a lawyer or appear before a judge before they were put on those planes? Yes or no?
Sir, every single individual followed the exact same process.
They were not all given the opportunity to appear before a judge or speak with a lawyer. On April 7th, the Supreme Court ruled that detainees must have an opportunity to have a hearing before they are deported. Are you familiar with the April 7th Supreme Court ruling?
I am.
Can you assure us that in the future you will abide by that Supreme Court ruling to provide detainees with a hearing before they are deported?
Following all judges' orders, yes, sir.
I have a photograph here of André Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist from Venezuela. He fled Venezuela fearing gang violence because of his opposition to the Maduro dictatorship and his sexual orientation. He presented himself at a port of entry and requested asylum. His claim was found to be credible, and he was placed in detention to await a full hearing. But he never received a full hearing because you put him on one of those planes to El Salvador, where he still is today. Listen to me. He had no criminal record in the United States or in any other country. He did not even enter the country illegally. He presented at a port of entry. He tried to do it the legal way, and to this date, the only evidence your department has presented to justify his imprisonment is that he had 2 tattoos, one that said mom and one that said dad. Do you have any other evidence to present for why this individual should be locked up in El Salvador?
Sir, every case is used
Do you have
the
any-
same protocols and the same processes and inputs.
Do you have any
that
evidence
that
other than the
law enforcement
tattoos that say
officers
mom
use in
or dad
criminal
for why
cases.
this
So it's
individual
not
should be
just on
locked up?
tattoos. It's who they're affiliated with, their communication.
You have not
who they're
presented
spending
any
time
other
with,
evidence,
criminal
nor has your
activities.
department.
The case is
Reclaiming
really
my time,
exactly the
during
same
your
as it was
confirmation
whenever
hearing, you
criminal
said your
cases.
focus would be on deporting immigrants who have been convicted of crimes and those who have received removal orders. But that is not what you have been doing. Instead, you have been deporting children with cancer, children who are U.S. citizens, a gay makeup artist who committed no crime and didn't even enter the country illegally. You have been sloppy. Your department has been sloppy. And instead of focusing on real criminals, you have allowed innocent children to be deported while you fly around the country playing dress up for the cameras. Instead of enforcing the laws, you have repeatedly broken them. You need to change course immediately before more innocent people are hurt on your watch.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize.
And the deeper Magaziner dug, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a paperwork mistake. This was a pattern. A trail of decisions that left sick children, asylum seekers, and entire families trapped outside the country, while DHS leadership insisted everything was by the book. But that wasn't the whole story, because what came next shook the entire committee room. The confrontation began with the case that has horrified tens of thousands of Americans. A woman in Louisiana was deported along with her 2 young children, both U.S. citizens. One of them, a 4-year-old boy, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Not stage 1, not stage 2, stage 4. A child whose life depended on treatment in the United States. And yet, according to Magaziner, DHS put him on a plane anyway. When Noem was pressed under oath about how something so extreme could happen, she repeated one line again and again. The mother consented. But Magaziner had already talked to the family's attorney, and that attorney stated publicly, repeatedly, and unequivocally that the mother never gave consent. No documents, no signature, no recorded statement, nothing that when Magaziner asked for the evidence to support the secretary's claim, the room fell silent. Noem couldn't produce a single page. Not a form, not a report, not a notation in the file. All she said was, "We'll get that to you." But there was no getting around the fact that this was one of the most serious allegations imaginable. A sick American child deported against the wishes of his mother, without a chance to speak to a lawyer, while the lawyer was literally in the same building. And that's where Magaziner dropped the first receipt. He held up IC Directive 11064, the official policy that governs how non-citizen parents and guardians must be treated when minor children are involved. The policy is explicit. Parents must be given the chance to make care arrangements. They must be allowed to speak with their attorney. ICE must follow protocols designed to prevent situations exactly like this. But those procedures weren't followed. And when Magaziner asked Noem whether these failures came from rogue field agents or from instructions within DHS leadership, she danced around the answer. That hesitation told him everything. Because this wasn't an isolated incident, and he wasn't done. Before the committee could even absorb the horror of the cancer-stricken child, Magaziner shifted to something even larger. 3 planes sent to El Salvador on March 15th. On those planes were 261 individuals who were detained upon arrival, some without ever speaking to a lawyer or appearing before a judge. When he asked whether Noem personally reviewed those 261 names, her answer was blunt. No, she didn't look. She didn't evaluate. She didn't approve. She didn't verify whether any of them had due process. Magaziner pressed again, pushing past the rehearsed lines, demanding a yes or no answer on whether they had been provided access to legal representation. She insisted they followed the process. But Magaziner pointed out that many of them did not receive the hearing required under U.S. law. Then came the bombshell. On April 7th, the Supreme Court ruled that detainees must be given a hearing before deportation. Not sometimes. Not if convenient. Always. When asked whether she was familiar with that ruling, Noem said yes. When asked whether DHS would abide by it in the future, she said yes again. But the tension in the room was unmistakable, because Magaziner had just outlined multiple deportations that appeared to violate that exact requirement. Still, the most heartbreaking example wasn't a child or one of the 261 deportees. It was a man who did everything the right way. Magaziner held up a photograph of Andre Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist from Venezuela who fled gang violence and persecution from a brutal political regime. He didn't sneak into the U.S. He presented himself at a legal port of entry. His credible fear claim was accepted. His record was clean. No crimes in the U.S. No crimes internationally. Under U.S. asylum law, he should have received a full hearing, but instead, he was placed on a plane to El Salvador. No warning. No explanation. No legal process. When DHS was asked why, the justification was almost unbelievable. His tattoos. One that said, "Mom," and one that said, "Dad." That was the evidence. That was the foundation for ruining a man's life. Members of Congress were stunned. Rumors online had been swirling for weeks that DHS was using superficial markers to justify deportations, but this was the first time the public heard a concrete example that matched those rumors. Magaziner demanded real evidence, anything beyond the tattoos. Noem couldn't produce any. She said, in vague terms, that it had to do with affiliations and communications, but again offered no documentation, no investigative findings, not even a summary of DHS's reasoning. It was the same pattern over and over, bold actions with no receipts. Magaziner then turned to the broader issue, the priorities of the department. During her confirmation hearing, Noem said she would focus resources on immigrants with criminal convictions and those with formal removal orders. But the cases he laid out showed something entirely different. Instead of focusing on dangerous offenders, DHS seemed to be removing sick children, families seeking help, and people who tried to immigrate legally. Magaziner's argument was simple. This wasn't just policy disagreement. This was negligence, carried out at scale. He accused the department of sloppiness, of violating its own directives, of ignoring a Supreme Court ruling, and of failing to provide even the most basic due process. And while he spoke, Noem sat with a stack of unanswered questions growing by the minute. The pattern was unmistakable. Missing documents, missing consent forms, missing reviews, missing hearings, missing justification. The deeper he went, the clearer it became that DHS leadership had lost control of the very system they were supposed to manage. But it was the emotional weight of the consequences that hit hardest. A child with cancer removed from life-saving treatment. An asylum seeker punished for doing things legally. Hundreds of migrants flown to a foreign country without the process the law requires. And through all of it, the secretary offered no clarity. Just vague assurances about protocols and processes, none of which matched the facts presented. Magaziner's final words weren't shouted, but they hit like a shout. He called this not politics, but a dereliction of duty. A failure so deep that innocent families paid the price. He accused Noem of flying around the country playing for the cameras while her department tore apart families and defied legal safeguards. And he warned that unless she corrected course immediately, more lives would be destroyed under her watch. The drama of the moment wasn't just the clash. It was the unmistakable imbalance between the questions and the answers, between the evidence and the excuses, between what the law requires and what DHS actually did. Noem came into the hearing expecting routine oversight. Instead, she left with a national firestorm, and the hearing didn't end when the cameras turned off. It only raised more questions. If DHS is willing to deport American citizen children without documentation, who else could be next? If legally compliant asylum seekers can be removed without a hearing, what does that say about the system? And if the secretary can't produce proof for the most serious decisions her agency makes, how can the public trust her to protect the country? That's the question now spreading across the country. Not left versus right, not policy versus policy, but something far more fundamental: accountability. Because once you deport a sick American child, once you take a man who followed every rule and exile him without a hearing, once you admit under oath that you never even reviewed the names of hundreds of people your department deported, the debate isn't about politics anymore. It's about competence. It's about humanity. It's about the rule of law. And so the question lands on every viewer. Should Kristi Noem resign after this? If you want oversight that actually exposes the truth, if you want leaders who protect families instead of breaking them apart, if you want more breakdowns of hearings the government hopes you never watch, hit subscribe, like this video, drop a comment, and stay tuned. Because more Americans need to see what happened today.